So there's something like a billion hours of content on YouTube, and it's growing all the time. I don't know if it's actually a billion, but it's something really high up there, And more than anybody could ever watch, probably in several lifetimes, at the rate that we're going at the moment. But it's funny that whenever I've made a video where I've spoken about God or religion or something like that, which I've done various times over the years, um, even though I've got no fanfare, it's not monetized, barely anybody knows it, like maybe, close friends on my Facebook list, maybe my immediate family or something, haven't done any kind of promotion or whatnot. Within 24 hours, and in some cases within 12 hours, some atheist is coming at me with like a little essay on why Christianity is false, and it's always the same. I'll read you the comment. Today is no exception. Within 24 hours, some guy, sounds like a 14-year-old kid, comes on. It makes me almost think that there's like some sort of like, I don't know, like, how the military has incoming missile warning systems. Well, it's like incoming, a theist, and the powers that be at Google have to unleash some hired troll to come out, or it will just sort of spit out some prepackaged bunch of retorts, because they always sound the same. Here, I'll read you the one that some guy named Eagle Nutrients has some sort of like fat version of Captain America's head as his icon. He writes, "You're really just making a long rambling excuse." Well, that's long and rambling. That's probably he probably did watch at least 30 seconds of it and saw the length before commenting. "A long rambling excuse why you don't like smart people who don't believe in fairy tales." There you go. Always with atheists, it's we're the smart guys, we're the brights, you lot are idiots. Fairy tales, of course, they just equate the religious thinking of some of the best minds in all of human history that are tied to an event that occurred in the past as simple fairy tales. Okay? So you think that because fairy tales exist, therefore no religion is true? All right, that's some questionable logic, but we go on. Adults who have imaginary friends. So right now I can infer from that I'm probably talking to a 14-year-old kid in his mom's basement. No matter if they have a really, really loving relationship with that friend, damning with faint praise, are delusional idiots. There we go. So we're either stupid or delusional. Sounds an awful lot like Richard Dawkins. Oh, that's right. Didn't I say that Richard Dawkins' arguments were deeply unimpressive? And Sam Harris. See, this is your typical new atheist. These kids that maybe were raised in a Christian home and now they're rebelling, or some that have just been raised to think that Christianity is dumb. Doesn't matter what you do for a living. Okay? So it's no matter what position you're in, no matter how much you thought about this, no matter how smart you are, because apparently he's moved from unintelligent to delusional. He seems to think that adults can be smart, but they're still delusional. You're just an idiot if you believe in God. If you know it's a fairy tale, you get to poo-poo the dipshits that still believe in them and pretend like believing you can telepathically talk to a dead Jew in the clouds isn't the exact same thing as believing you have a radio in your head that can pick up codes from the CIA. Well, if you want to talk about CIA codes transmitted over the airwaves, I think, are you sort of showing your hand here that this is a little psyop, that anyone that talks about belief in God will automatically get generated one of these types of messages? And who programmed you there, smart guy? I mean, you go to school, you get an education, the culture's telling you belief in God, belief in Christianity is stupid, delusional, hateful, backward, all that sort of stuff. I mean, how do you justify your epistemological starting points? How do you justify your metaphysics? How do you justify your ethics? Oh, that's right. You appeal to the crowd or to yourself, which has been programmed by like TV and the state and all that. So, I get mine, a lot of it from an old book with a lot of history behind it. A lot of history, bad things like slavery. Yeah, with ending slavery. So, it's cool that you don't believe. Most people I know don't believe. But it always just makes me, I want to say laugh, but sometimes they're funny. I mean, this guy is kind of amusing. But this whole thing about we're smarter than you and you're delusional, it gets a little tired, which makes me think that this is just an automatically generated message by YouTube, because this sort of stuff, social engineering stuff, does go on. I would read to you. I've deleted it. I've forgotten where it is. Well, I could maybe find it for another thing. Amazon rejected a review that I wrote of a book called The Occult Renaissance Church of Rome recently. And they came back and they said that I had violated the guidelines. And I looked at the guidelines and I'm like, what did I violate here? There's nothing libelous there. And they said whether it was profane or discriminatory or something. And as far as I can tell, the thing that made it fall afoul of the guidelines was repeating in the review the thesis and contention of the essay, ergo, that 21st or 20th century Catholicism, modern Catholicism as we know it, the Church of Diversity, the Church of Nice, has been co-opted since Vatican II by various factions, the CIA, Jewish Zionist interests, and the Jesuits. And it's not just one group, but several have sort of been brought to bear, Freemasonic influences, such that the church no longer teaches what it has taught for 2,000 years, and is preaching a very different message from what it used to. And that in fact, these groups have only been able to gain purchase because the church has been on sort of a terminal decline since the Enlightenment period, when occult, hermetic, esoteric stuff that I was talking about last night infiltrated the church. Well, merely repeating that got my review banned, apparently. So I'm like, well, you're selling the product, but you won't let anybody say what the book is about, which was kind of interesting. Anyway, so it's just fun to bring up little comments. I mean, this is the thing. I have like no views. I've got like 8 views, and 3 of them are from me. Hardly anyone knows that I've even posted this. I'm assuming I'm going to have to post at least 200 daily things before anyone starts to notice I'm actually making these, and I might gain some small audience. But again, within 24 hours, there's some anonymous atheist troll telling me I'm stupid and delusional. I think it's generated by Google, or someone's got a lot of time on their hands, or Google just automatically sends it out, going, "Oh, we need some autistic, person on the spectrum to quickly come back and say something silly." Anyway, so what did I want to talk about tonight? Well, what sorts of things came up? Oh yeah, remember the Family Guy TV show? With that Peter and Lois and yes, with Stewie and the like, Meg and so forth. They've been around a long time, and I think they were mildly amusing when they first came out. It was very crass humor. It wasn't exactly sort of highbrow, but I did laugh at quite a lot of it. Has gotten steadily less funny over the years as it's gotten just recycling. The show's not going anywhere. There's no growth in any of the characters. It should have ended quite a while ago. I don't know anyone that really watches it anymore, except like my nephews, and even they have gotten kind of bored of it, and they're young teenagers. But apparently the producers Alec Solkin and Rick Appel have told Seth MacFarlane in no uncertain terms that it is now time to phase out the homosexual jokes. They said, quote, stuff from 2008 that was funny as they realize now is not acceptable in 2018. So much like the Facebook 10-year challenge, they've discovered that it's no longer okay to poke fun at this heavily protected group. It's not acceptable, which is interesting. It's like the 10-year challenge. It's like having a 2008, they had a jester, and 2018, they got that shrieking nun from Game of Thrones going, shame, shame, shame. Which kind of leads me to think, all right, well, this is a thing. This is why leftists, and I hate to use that broad term, but you pretty much know what I mean, like the SJWs, the people that are authoritarian. I know leftists who are pretty sort of laid back about stuff. They can tolerate things. But there's the leftards, as we call them, people that are a combination of below average IQ and but above average authoritarianism. They occur on the other side as well. Don't get me wrong. But depending on your political your place on the political spectrum, you'll have people on both sides of the aisle that are sort of not so smart, but also very much authoritarian and say it's got to be this way. They really seem to get rid of comedy, want to get rid of comedy, and comedians have commented on this. Guys like Jerry Seinfeld and whatnot saying we can't even go on university campuses anymore because these little snowflakes are so easily offended that it's just not worth it. I mean, look, they can't even find a host for the Academy Awards because because it's seen as so damaging to your career if you dare to make a joke about something that's funny. So why is being funny such a risk, and why is it so offensive to a certain group of people on the left in this particular political climate right now? Well, because jokes are not nice. Comedy is not nice. Comedy always makes fun of somebody in some way. You're thinking, oh no, you can tell inoffensive jokes that are clean. I'm not talking about being clean. Jokes are always making fun of something, somebody, somewhere, because they have to be relatable. Jokes are always at somebody's expenses, whether it's dumb dads like Homer Simpson, or the fact that women can't drive jokes. I'm thinking of like Bill Cosby. He used to be a great example. Now he's a terrible example in light of all the revelations about him. But remember, his comedy shtick was he was the clean comedian, and he could have you in stitches talking about fatherhood. Now, of course, he's making fun of fatherhood, but he's not being cruel to fathers. He's poking fun at it. He's poking fun at the trials and tribulations so that people can sort of laugh at and with. But it is always even gently, at somebody's expense. So what's happened is that in 2008, it was society still saw homosexual activity maybe not as something that was entirely depraved anymore, because the society had already moved on from that idea, but it was still something that was seen as abnormal and something that could be safely made fun of. Nobody wanted to be thought of as ever being gay. It was like, no, dude, I'm not gay. So you can make fun of it. Now, however, it is. We are in our so-called tolerant society. We can't make fun of things. We can't make fun of them because they are an oppressed minority and they are held up. And so it's off limits, just like you're not allowed to make fun of women, or you're not allowed to make fun, white guys can't make race jokes and all that sort of stuff. See, here's the funny thing about it. It's like when these, at a certain point, when is it going to be okay to make fun of these things again, right? Because people make jokes as a way of bonding. Like, I'm thinking of this in the race context. I'm not saying for a second that things are better in the 1950s between blacks and whites, but I am hearing stories all the time, like my granddad and other people that I know of, where they would work side by side with people that were black, or you'd get like an Irishman working next to somebody from New Jersey or something like that. And believe me, those sort of ethnic differences did matter back then. Who was it? Who was it that used to? Oh, yeah, Charles Darwin said that likened the Irish unto animals and said that they were less than the Negroes. Yeah, your Saint Darwin, remember, he was a terrible racist by today's standard, by any standard. And yet, funnily enough, he's Saint Darwin. And yet James Watson recently, who came out and said, unfortunately, there is a correlation between IQ differences and race. And that's the guy who discovered the double helix. He's literally the father of genetic science. And even though he was deeply apologetic and said, I'm sorry for this discovery, the scientific community are like, here's reprehensible, and we totally disassociate ourselves with him. Yeah, but good old St. Darwin, he gets a pass, right? Because he was an occult wizard, as others have pointed out. But anyway, it is this thing where back in the day, people that had these differences would be like, you dumb Mick, you cracker, and all that sort of thing. They would call each other names, but it was a way to bond. They make fun of each other. That's how guys bond. And I just sometimes think that, it's often women that are at the forefront of this, don't tell jokes, because that's not, guys bond by kind of competitively making fun of each other. And instead of fighting, they get it out that way. I guess that's toxic masculinity, right? Toxic masculinity. But see, the girls don't do that. The girls, they're all about empathy and cooperation. And dude, bro, not cool, not cool. Yeah. Instead, it's all backbiting. You think there's no such thing as female, toxic femininity? Just ask Brett Weinstein's wife. She did a big study on toxic femininity and talks about the Machiavellian Marys and whatnot, the women that are highly attractive, that use that attractiveness to both reel men in as a way of getting attention, and then they complain about the attention that they get and turn into full-on victim mode in order to, allow themselves to ascend in power by this feigned victim status. That's written about by a woman. Don't get mad at me just for reporting the weather. Unfortunately, I stay abreast of this stuff. Pardon the pun. So we're not allowed comedy anymore. It's kind of depressing. But, jokes make fun of people. But, of course, it's not that comedy is going to end. It's just that comedy is like, it has to be terribly safe. And what do we mean by safe? Well, the only people that you're allowed to make fun of these days, I would suspect, are like white, heterosexual, Christian males. Like, you can't make fun of Islam or the Jews or pagans or witches. They get upset. But you can make fun of Christians. Christians, you can say whatever you want, whether it's Rowan Atkinson or Bill Burr or George Carlin. Yeah, Christianity is a safe thing. You can make fun of Christianity all you want. White males, they're accused of intersectionality and the original sin of white privilege and all that sort of stuff. So they're on the bottom of the totem pole. They have been deemed the universal oppressors. So in this sort of revolutionary and I would say hermetical attempt to redress an imbalance, because whites have historically done very, very well throughout history. I mean, that's not a racist statement. That's just, people complain about that. They're saying they've done it by climbing on the backs of others. Ironically enough, in the Darwinian struggle to survive, which they also espouse as being the true philosophy. Whites are now the one category of people white male heterosexuals, because you can be like a white woman and still claim victim status, or you can be a white male homosexual and claim victim status, but you can't be a white heterosexual male Christian. See that? You can make fun of them, and you can make them the villains as well in anything. You can always cast them as villains, and you see that all the time in television. I mean, look at that Gillette ad. It was like 96% of the men shown there were whites, and all but like one of the black guys were like correcting the whites or something like that. There was no Islamic fundamentalist with a big old beard in need of a razor beating his wife, or subjecting her to female circumcision or selling her at the bazaar or something. Oh no, because that's Islamophobic. You can't go there, even though it happens. There is this funny thing where I was talking to this friend of mine, and she's not really a friend, to be honest, but she got really offended when I pointed out. She'd come at me saying, this ad, stop being a misogynist and all that for the Gillette ad. I was like, how is it misogynistic to mock it? But anyway, I said, why aren't there any Muslims? And you can't say that this is Islamophobic. Not all Muslims are like that. I'm like, that's really interesting, because you take this stance that as long as there's, one Muslim not doing it, that exonerates all of them across the board. You can't say any Muslim subjects women to female genital mutilation, or sees it as his marital right to commit domestic violence, to discipline her, all that sort of stuff that you see rampant all over the place in Islamic communities, because they have different laws. They have Sharia law. They have different standards of what is right and wrong, and they come into Western countries. Some of them assimilate, but a significant number of them do not, and they have their own way of doing things. So it's both, you've got these feminists, and on the one hand, they want to talk about female rights and and ending harm to women and all that. Well, at the same time, you'll often see them refusing to say boo to a goose when it comes to Islam. There's like this special, they adopt this sudden cultural relativism. So they'll say as long as one guy isn't doing it, of course it's more than one, but as long as there's one that's not doing it, that exonerates everyone. But at the same time, they'll point to these sort of polite white guys working the barbecue, and even though statistically they're like the lowest offenders that commit these kind of dastardly murders and rapes and all that sort of thing, as long as one white guy is doing it, of course it's more than one, but as long as there's just one, then it's fine to present an ad where 96% of the people in it are white males, and we're saying that they're all, displaying toxic masculinity. That's just this funny mindset that goes on. It's sort of this double standard. And of course, we get in trouble for making these kinds of videos, for pointing it out, for recognizing patterns. That's all I'm doing is recognizing patterns. There's no white supremacism going on. There's no racism going on. And of course, all the left can do is when they hear this, they can't really give an argument back. They'll just be like, point fingers and call names and try to shame you with their rhetoric. That's how they do things, but it doesn't work on everybody. So Family Guy is now going to virtue signal and is going to focus on telling more jokes, I guess, at PETA's expense, and phasing out jokes against same-sex attracted people. Well, okay, that's where we are in 2019. Well, isn't that a good thing, Stephen? No, it's not, actually. I think that we should be able to make fun of everybody. Like, you should be able to make fun of me, white, heterosexual, Christian male, and we should be able to make fun of gay guys and other, because no one's getting beaten up, no one's getting killed, no one's getting... If you get to the point where the only people you can make fun of and deride and express hatred for are white guys, well, that puts us in a position of getting beaten up and all that sort of stuff. So you're not really ending violence. You're just aiming it at somebody else. And you're kind of reminding me of this old adage this sort of thing I thought of where I go, for some people, equality doesn't mean, equal outcomes or treating people equally. For some people, equality actually means eye for an eye, payback. It's like, okay, it was like this for you 500 years ago. Now it's our time to persecute you. And that's equal, to balance the scales, to settle the score, to settle all accounts. But of course, they can just, these narratives will just talk about oppression of the past, and there's no kind of, okay, so for how long are you going to be able to do that? Or to what extent can you oppress the other side? And you never actually experienced it yourself. You never wore chains or anything like that. So is there any kind of cap on what you can do? So we've got to challenge that as well. Basically, I'm just arguing that we should treat everybody with respect and decorum. That's all. The modicum of respect, But it gets crazy sometimes. So another thing I came across today was, do I want to talk about the Anglican connection? I might say that for another day. 23 minutes. Okay. Well, it's gone by fast for me. I don't know about you. We'll talk about the Anglican thing later. Oh, yeah. So Jonah Goldberg, he has graded President Trump's performance so far. He said it's incomplete, not doing the work. From a conservative perspective, the president had fewer wins in his sophomore years, but there were certainly some. Presidents often get credit for things they have only passing responsibility for, and if it was acceptable practice for past presidents, there's no reason to expect differently from this White House. Okay, thank you for preaching there, Mr. Goldberg. So they have every right to crow about great employment numbers and the like. Ah, yes. So right away we're trying to say that Trump should not get any credit at all for the creation of jobs, the uptick in the economy, that sort of thing. That's all because of what came before him. But of course, Obama was not responsible for any of the stuff that happened under him, because they just say, oh, it was the other guy. They have a better case to boast about a continuing line of conservative judges and justices he has appointed to the bench, most significantly Kavanaugh. His foreign policy accomplishments in year 2 tend not to improve the scrutiny The overtures. Oh, by the way, Jonah Goldberg was a never Trumper who works for the National Review, contributing editor. Remember, conservatives. These are. I'm not concerned about what liberals say about Trump. They are just crazy in the head. But sometimes when you get these conservative guys who always have similar sounding last names, they're just these never Trump characters who, no matter what, they're just shooting at their own side. Because they want, like, Milo was talking about this. They're looking for their pastor in chief, or they're talking about, oh, he doesn't espouse the values that we have. No, man, you're in it to win. You're in it to win for your side. And if talking a little rough and being not coming across as an intellectual and speaking to the lower classes, to the blue collar workers, is how to do it, then that's how you do it. All of this stuff about, oh, Trump, he's so bad, he says this, he says that, leading up to the election, that was all class war stuff. It was like, oh, he's not genteel enough. He's not coming across and they're going, oh, he's stupid. They know damn well he's not stupid, but it's like, oh, he can't string a sentence together. Oh, that's class war. It's total class war where these numpties sit there thinking that they're just bloody superior, and they're going to feel superior all the way down to ignominious defeat while the country that they claim to love so much and try to preserve completely changes. No, we can't build a wall. Can't build a wall. That's racist. Yeah. I mean, the whole point is to just keep bringing in more and more migrants who will then reliably vote for the Democrats, because Democrats have positioned themselves as being the pro-immigrant party, and they make Texas blue by numbers, and then boom, they secure themselves as always being able to win elections. Then, of course, the Republicans respond, as they've been doing for decades, by becoming more and more and more left-wing in all of their policies to try to capture some of that vote back. And, the country is irrevocably and irretrievably changed as a result. It is no longer America. It's this strange, pseudo-Canada, whatever. But it's not what, the Republicans claim to be trying to conserve. There is no conservative anymore because literally there's nothing left to conserve. When we're having 10-year-old children making the news and reported on favorably for dancing naked with naked men in gay bars in New York City, that's a real thing. There's literally nothing left to conserve when that's the situation. So anyway, I think it should be pointed out that Trump is actually doing a very good job in many ways. Not perfect. He has not yet built the wall, but he's working on it. They've got the shutdown going on. Pelosi just rejected a DACA deal in exchange for $5.7 billion. He's not drained the swamp, but I think that's happening. He could end up. I think he's preparing for action. I think he's preparing to declare a state of national emergency and do what he needs to do there. I mean, it's just amazing that they hold him accountable and say, "Oh, well, you haven't done this, you haven't done that." I've never seen a president who is so tirelessly opposed. And you can say, oh, Obama was Obama. No, not like Trump, because the media did not portray Obama in this negative way. And look, I'm not American, so I can just sit here and watch and observe. Okay, I don't have a dog in this race because I'm not from the United States. So I know how I sound, but I'm not from there. I have no American citizenship whatsoever. So, but it's just amazing. The wall-to-wall negative coverage of the media. And say, oh, well, doesn't that tell you something? I'm like, yeah, it means that a bunch of corporations that run the media don't like Trump because they can't really control him. And so they are the arbiters, and they hire people that will reliably give him terrible coverage. You never saw journalists sitting in newsrooms openly and defiantly and rudely challenging Obama like you do with Trump, and have them, they're so self-righteous. Oh, I have an obligation to do that. Oh, sit down and shut up. You don't have the right to do that. You should be acting in the way that you demand others to act. You demand this high standard of behavior for all conservatives, but you don't do it yourselves. Your talk show hosts are swearing and cussing and carrying on, and the dancing girl is swearing and cussing and calling Trump an MF and all the rest of it. Oh, but Trump said, they're not sending us our best. Some of them are rapists, some of them they're murderers, and there's some good people too. Yeah, he was quoting a study from the Huffington Post that was citing that many women that are trying to cross the border are being raped on their way there by other migrants. So sorry, but it's only bad when he says it, not when the Huffington Post says it. Anyway, that's enough for me now. This is my rant for the evening, my little roundup. I was going to talk about Anglicanism, but I've managed to huff and puff about the stuff for long enough. And so next time, stay fresh, stay fruity, and this old curmudgeon will see you tomorrow. Bye.